Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the City and County of Swansea's council meeting. And the first item on the agenda is apologies of absence. If I can hand over to Mr. Hugh Evans, please.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I have apologies from Councillors Alison Anthony, Di Jenkins, Paul Lloyd, Kelly Robert, Graham Thomas, Gordon Walker and Mike White. Any others?
Councillor Alan Jeffrey, please.
David Phillips.
Okay, the next item is disclosures of personal and prejudicial interests, and I'll hand you over to Deb Smith.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I've sent an email out to all members this morning. I'll deal with the agenda items where I think interests are likely. Agenda item number 7 is the schools admission arrangements 25-26. I'm of the view that no interest arises as a result of the opposition as school governor. However, you may well have a well-being interest if you have a child or a grandchild or a close associate as a child who may be directly affected by the admission arrangements for the year 25-26. And I say directly affected rather than just a child of that school age. You need to be directly affected by these admission arrangements. So I'm prepared to take a block declaration, personal interest only, if you fall within that category of having a child or a grandchild or close associate with a child who's affected by those arrangements. So if you can raise your hands now for a block declaration, please. And if you can please fill out the form. Thank you. The next agenda item with interest is the pay policy statement 24-25. This is a statutory report which contains information relating to officers' pay. And so councillors who have a close personal associate or a family member who works for the council should declare a personal interest. And again, I'll take a block declaration for those members falling within that category, please. Personal interest only. Thank you. And again, fill out the form.
Yeah, can I ask if I declare a personal interest? I got 2 members of my family work for the city and county. Do I have to leave the?
No. Personal interest only. You can remain.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. This report item, it affects all officers directly because it's the pay policy. All officers will have a personal and prejudicial interest in this item and will leave the room at the time that this item is being considered. I think we have Rachel Davis, Head of HR and Service Centre, who's going to be available online to answer any questions. And I think Hugh Evans is going to remain in the room for the minute taking, but other than that, all officers will leave the room for that item. Next is item 12, the Chief Officer Job Evaluation Scheme. This affects all Chief Officers and Deputy Chief Officers. Although it's a for information report, I am advising all Chief Officers and Deputy Chief Officers to declare a personal and prejudicial interest and leave the room so that there can be an open dialogue for members should they wish to do so. The Chief Executive, Martin Nichols, will remain in the room to deal with any technical questions that members may have on that agenda item. Agenda item number 13, nomination of Lord Mayor and Deputy Lord Mayor-elect 24-25. You will not have an interest simply because you work alongside the nominees, but you will have a personal and prejudicial interest if you're either a nominee or if you have a close personal association with a nominee. And if you have that prejudicial interest, you need to leave the room for this agenda item. Agenda item number 14, you will have a personal and prejudicial interest if you are related to or had a close personal association with the nominee for this agenda item, and you'll need to leave the meeting for this item. And the last one, apologies, there's quite a lot of interest tonight. Statement of accounts, agenda item number 17. Some members will have been appointed to external bodies that are referenced in the accounts. So there's reference here to, for example, Port Authority, Fire Authority, National Waterfront Museum, Wales National Pool, Swansea Community Energy Enterprise Scheme, and I think there are some others as well. If you have been appointed to any of these external bodies, then can you declare a personal interest? And again, because this might affect a number of members, I'll take a block declaration, personal interest only, for those members who've been appointed to one of the external bodies in this report. So block declaration, please.
Yeah. And me.
Okay, thank you.
Can I question whether it's personal or personal and prejudicial? Because if you are a director of a limited company, the onus is on a director to act in the best interest of the company. And so therefore, although you might be put forward by the council, if you've got to act in the best interest of the limited company that you're a member of, it could well be prejudicial.
Yes, in certain items of business, it clearly will be prejudicial. For this one, it's just a statement of accounts for 22-23, so it's backward looking in the sense of just reporting on the financial arrangements. So it'd be personal only for this particular item. But as you say, in other matters, it may well tip over into a prejudicial interest. Are there any other interests, please, in other items of the agenda? Thank you.
Yes, I've got a personal interest, but it's not prejudicial in item 8 as an employee who works in that field.
Thank you, Councillor Rice. Any others? Yes, we've got. Councillor.
Sorry, David.
Yeah, I got several interests within it. Obviously, I got the schools admission, I think we've already declared. I've also got the naming policy. My mother is named in the report, so it's personal prejudicial. I will leave the room for that.
Councillor Stevens.
Yeah, just personal interest in Councillor Question's sustainable farming scheme. My business is in receipt of the basic payment scheme. Thanks.
Matthews, sorry.
Same, the naming policy, personal and prejudicial, so we leave the room.
Councillor Bev.
Item 14, it's a personal and prejudicial
Thank you.
interest, and I will be leaving the room.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Fitzgerald. Thank you. Foster. Councillor Dirk.
Item 10, my partner works for the local authority. Personal interest then.
Anybody else?
Yeah, personal interest, Port Health Authority.
Oh, it's Councillor Hale. Councillor
Yes,
Philpott.
Councillor Hale. Yeah, thanks very much.
Yeah, I got you, Councillor Hale. Councillor Philpott.
Yeah, agenda item 13, a personal interest as I'm named in the report.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Oh,
Councillor Smith.
Personal interest, Port Health Authority.
Water.
Yeah. And can I remind you again, please, to complete the declaration forms? Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we move on to the next item then, and that's the announcements of the presiding member, and that's over to me. And the first announcement is there's representatives from the under-13s Swansea schoolgirls. I'd like to welcome them from the under-13 Swansea schoolgirls. These young ladies have made an astonishing achievement for the second year running, reached the final in the English Schools Football Association Champions Cup. Their journey to the final including an 8-1 away win over Slough, a 2-1 home win over Brighton, a 5-2 away win over West Kent, and then a bye into the semi-final along with Liverpool. In the semi-final, they beat East Riding 5-2, and they now proceed to the final, which will be played at the Stoke City ground, and the date is yet to be announced. The team also won the West Wales League and are through to the Welsh semi-finals. The team is putting Swansea on the map, and I'm sure we all wish them the very best of luck and hope to be able to welcome them back as champions. And please join me in giving them a well-deserved round of applause. And just to mention, one of the team is the granddaughter of Councillor David Hopkins and Bev, and the daughter of Councillor Matthews. Okay, so well done. Okay, the next announcement is the Land Data Local Land Charges Awards for 2024. Congratulations to the Council's Land Changes team, land charges team, within planning services for recently winning the Customer Satisfaction Award, Best in Unitary Councils. They are the first in Wales for this award, and the land charges team manages conveyancing searches, which are essential part of moving homes for our residents. It's voted for by conveyancers and solicitors who are asked to consider quality, efficiency, reliability, and value for money. So congratulations to them. The next is amendments and corrections to the council summons. It's item 9, the Human Rights and Strategic Quality Plan 24 to 28. There is an error in the paragraph relating to race on page 105 of the council summons in Appendix A, Section 3, about us. Key headlines from the census 2021 tells us an element of the report. The paragraph should read, race, Swansea has a higher proportion of people in non-white ethnic groups, 8.6%, than the Welsh average. The largest non-white ethnic group in Swansea in 2021 was Bangladeshi, around 2,900 people, or 1.2%. The school census 2023 suggests that the number and proportion of children from non-white ethnic groups has increased over the past 5 years. Oh, that's that one. So the next one is item 15, councillors' questions, question 2. There is a typographical error, that should be not area, in the response. The figure should be 2,381,387.50. Yeah, the response contained a comma rather than a dot. Report of the Audit Wales Audit of Accounts, City and County of Swansea, and the Statement of Accounts 22-23. The presiding member, monitoring officer, and head of democratic services have agreed that these reports be added to the council summons, given the statutory 3 clear working days notice to allow the statements of accounts to be considered during this financial year. And these reports will be considered after item 6 on the Standards Committee Annual Report 22-23. That's the end of my announcements. The next item is the announcements of the Leader of the Council. Over to you, Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Just one announcement for this evening. I had the pleasure yesterday of attending a Meet the City Deal event over in the new Swansea Arena. It's an event that was extremely well attended, coming as it does on the anniversary of the signing of the £1.3 billion Swansea-based City Deal. Again, some of the remarkable delivery that's taken place since then is that we are now the only City Deal to have all of our projects and programmes in the delivery phase. And we now have some 36 projects underway. We've deployed over £255 million into projects in Swansea and the region, creating hundreds of jobs already. There is no other deal that has allocated all of its money. We've allocated to date £1.296 billion. And again, that is supporting the delivery of the projects and helping us to create the target of 10,000 jobs over the next few years. So again, really pleased to see that. And obviously that was the single biggest impetus for investment and inward investment into our region, which continues today. As we see, we have a development pipeline worth over £1 billion at the moment in Swansea. So again, just wanted to report back. It was a very positive event and good to see such great progress being made across our region.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. The next item is public questions. I believe you've got one person to ask a question. Just remind you, we've got 10 minutes for public questions. I'm not sure. Is it? Oh, the
yes,
gentleman's online.
Yes,
Oh,
thank
lady.
you.
Sorry.
That's okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Yes, we can. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk today. Basically, I wanted to draw the council attention to item 7 of the agenda, the school admissions arrangements. My concern is with the current oversubscription policy. The policy gives no priority to children living in catchment who have a sibling in attendance at the school. And this policy is unique to the Swansea area. It's not in line with the best practice guidance of the Welsh Government, and it's different to counties in Wales and England who prioritise keeping siblings together. So this policy is deeply damaging to families affected and has affected our family. family who have to either choose to take all of their children out of the school where their siblings have been happy and settled, or separate siblings and send them to different schools doing multiple drop-offs, resulting in a real strain on family life. And we believe that children who live in the catchment area of the school with a sibling in attendance should have priority over simple distance alone, which is currently the oversubscription policy, and do not believe that it would be difficult or controversial to implement this. And this isn't our opinion, it's also the opinion of 20 other local authorities in Wales, and also, having done the research, 317 in England who do have a criteria prioritising sibling attendance. And it's also the opinion of the Welsh Government, who clearly state in their school admissions code guidance to local authorities, and I'll quote, giving priority to children who have siblings who will be at the school when they join may support parents of young children. That certainly was ours. We've raised this with the Education Department at length and have been informed that this issue is not sufficient significance to warrant amendment. And they showed us figures presented and said that only 3 families in the last 7 years have been affected by this policy. But I think these data must be wrong, because my family was not part of that data and we were affected last year. And there was another family in the same class at the same primary school who were forced to change schools and take 3 happy children out of school into another primary school. And our belief is that the data is unrepresentative and that many more families are silently affected by this policy. And I suppose alternatively, should the data be correct, then why would it be such a big change to change the policy and stop the separation of even 3 families? So our question to the Education Department is not whether the policy is legally binding or long established, nor too insignificant a concern to warrant amendment, which is currently the response we've had from the Education Department, but whether this policy is truly the best policy for children and families of Swansea. And if it is the genuine belief, then we ask on what grounds and why Swansea stands alone in the opinion compared to the 20 other local authorities in Wales and the 317 in England. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Field. Councillor Smith, please.
Thank you, Presiding Member. And can I thank you for the question? The short answer is yes, based on the evidence available at the moment. The advice from officers is that siblings are considered before distance in the oversubscription criteria. It includes looked after children, catchment area, siblings, and then distance. But then distance is subsequently used as a tiebreaker within the criteria. The modelling suggests that this reduces the number of refusals for children living in catchment. What I would say, however, is we're not wedded to this particular system, and when we come to item 7 on the agenda, I will be moving certain things then, which may well address the concerns you raise.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Smith. Okay, thank you, Mrs Field. The next item is the Standards Committee Annual Report, and I'd like to call on Mike Lewis, Chair of Standards Committee, for the report, please.
Yes, good afternoon, Presiding Member and elected members. My name, for those of you who have not met, my name is Mike Lewis. I've been on the Standards Committee since 2017 and Chair of the Committee since November 2022. As the Presiding Member has said, I'm here today to present the annual report of the Standards Committee for the years 2022-2023. Can I, however, before I start, just make a personal apology? I had intended, Presiding Member, to be with you today personally, but unfortunately something happened in my diary today which has prevented that, so apologies that I'm appearing online. The report is provided for information. There are a couple of issues I just wanted to highlight for members, but I think I'm sure that members would want to join with me in thanking the previous chair, Mrs Jill Burgess, who served on the committee for 10 years, latterly as chair, and I'm sure that elected members would want to join me in thanking Mrs Burgess for her service over those 10 years. I'm going to take it, Presiding Member, that the report has been read in advance, So just one or two things to highlight, if I may. The most significant change, I suppose, over the last couple of years is the Local Government and Elections Wales Act 2021, and that put in place amongst a number of other things, a statutory duty on group leaders to support and to promote adherence with the code of conduct and best practice. Now, I have to say that we, as the City and County of Swansea, were already in a good place as far as this is concerned, and the Standards Committee had been meeting annually with group leaders. So in a sense, that just codified and ratified a process that we already had in place. And I'm delighted to report that in my experience since 2017, we have a very good level of engagement with all the group leaders, which I think I've tried to acknowledge in the foreword to this annual report that's currently before you. Why do we think that's important? I think certainly during my time on the committee, we've said that engagement, training and good communication is far better than a potential breach of the code, which could of course lead to sanction, censure or suspension. And one of the messages I think I would want to get across to elected members tonight, that in my experience, we are in a relatively good position as far as the City and County of Swansea is concerned, and generally speaking, behaviour amongst elected members, is generally very, very good. Just a couple of words, if I may, of explanation or further explanation around the numbers, because it is quite hard to convey with different annual reports what's behind the numbers. So, and the careful readers amongst you might have had a question on this. The 15 complaints in this particular year that we referred to, 14 of them were not investigated by the Ombudsman's office. However, one was then subsequently sent to the Adjudication Panel for Wales. So it didn't come to the Standards Committee per se, but it went to the Adjudication Panel for Wales, and that was in January 2024. And also paragraph 2.14.2 of the report refers to two complaints. They were from the year 2021. They came to the Standards Committee in March of 23. We decided that they did require a hearing, and that hearing took place in October 23. So obviously will be covered in more detail in next year's report. So I hope that just explains why some of the numbers don't at first glance add up. The other headline I just wanted to bring to your attention, which again is a pleasing one, is that complaints to the Ombudsman's office from community councillors also reduced in this particular year, which is a good news story. I'm not going to say an awful lot more, presiding member, but I would, again, I think it would be remiss of me if I didn't take this opportunity to thank my fellow members on the committee who, for all of their individual parts, take a great level of engagement in the work of the committee. And that's not just elected members, but my colleague co-opted members. And also, can I just thank, whilst I've got the opportunity, Mr. Evans and his Democratic Services team, and also the head of legal and monitoring officer and her team for the support that they provide us. Presiding member, I wasn't going to say an awful lot more, but if members have any questions, I will do my best to assist.
Are there any questions? No? So Lewis, can I thank you very much for your report, and thank you for clearing up those two items on the breaches. So thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, presiding member.
Okay, we now move on to the next item, and I'm going to bring forward the report of the Audit Wales and Audit Accounts of the City and County of Swansea, and I'd like to call on Derwin Owen and Leanne Mallo of Audit Wales, please.
Thank you, presiding member, and good evening, everyone. So I'm Derwin Owen, I'm an Audit Director within Audit Wales. And over the last few months, Audit Wales have been auditing your draft 2022-2023 Statement of Accounts. And the report which is in front of Council this evening contains the key conclusions from that work. I should also mention that the same report went to your audit committee last week for discussion. The key conclusion is that Audit Wales intends to provide an unqualified audit opinion on your accounts. That is, in our opinion, the accounts do show a true and fair view of your financial transactions during the year and of the balances you hold or owe at the year end. So that's very good news in terms of the key conclusion arising from the audit. I do need to provide members with a reminder that I can never provide absolute assurance as to the accuracy of your statement of accounts, and indeed use a industry standards concept of materiality. And for this year, that is in the order of £11 million. I want to draw members' attention to Exhibit 1 of the report, which does set out that for the second time in succession, the draft statement of accounts was received later than the Welsh Government timetable. Now, I know there are a number of reasons why this is, and the Council is working hard to address the timetable issue, but I think it's important for me just to raise to members that the accounts were received later than the prescribed timetable, but I know the Council is working hard to get back on track in terms of that timetable. In terms of our audit findings, I can say that the accounts were of a good standard and were generally well supported, making the audit process so much easier. The main changes which we identified and discussed with officers are set out in Appendix 3 of our report. And the only matter which we draw significant attention to is in relation to the valuation of assets. Members will understand that the Council has a large, complex asset base, and we identified some areas of improvement within the valuation of school buildings in particular. Finally, presiding member, I'd like to put on record my thanks to the Director of Finance and his team for their ongoing cooperation during the audit, and happily seek to answer any questions members may have. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Mr. Owen. Can I have somebody to move the report, please?
Very happy to move the statement of accounts, Chair.
Seconder? Okay.
Happy to second.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Owen? Oh, no. Okay, we'll move to everybody in favour of the report? Anybody against? And any abstentions? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Owen. We now move on to the next item, which will be the statement of accounts. And I'd like to call on Mr. Ben Smith, the Section 151 officer, please, to make the report.
Thank you, presiding member. You have the 22-23 statement of accounts before you. And as Mr. Owen has stated, and I have acknowledged, they are late. I didn't draw specific attention to that in the report itself, but context is important here. Local government accounts and audit is in a bit of a mess in the whole of the UK. Most authorities were late to some extent. Wales is in a better position than the rest of the UK, but we were by any measure late, and as Mr. Owen has acknowledged, late twice for a number of reasons which I've explained fully to the audit committee, and primarily flow from some of the recovery work we had to do in the midst of the pandemic around asset valuations and reserve valuations. As Mr. Owen has indicated, we are a large complex organisation with several £billion on our balance sheet, and given the materiality level, 0.5% out on that asset base would trigger that materiality threshold. I would equally want to acknowledge the close working relationship that I've had with Mr. Owen and his audit colleagues. I described it at audit committee as amicable on a personal level, as amicable as can be for someone who is our statutory regulator. There are, of course, times when it is professionally fraught because it is quite time pressed. And I would also wish to acknowledge the fantastic work done by my very, very small finance team. who in the end had to do some rework on behalf of the matters rightly raised by the Auditor General's team, and also be preparing for the 23-24 accounts, and also managing to do the work on Oracle Fusion transition, and also the very same team that in the last couple of weeks have been busy doing the budget work that has come through council. So it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge that. The accounts are very, very complicated. The council is a very, very complicated beast. The hold-ups were around staffing, a use of agency staff, a need to rework some of those capital valuations through, and also there was a hold-up with one of our joint ventures, which has been resolved satisfactorily, and indeed was discussed at Cabinet today in terms of some temporary arrangements for continuing the joint venture arrangements. So I am pleased to get to a position where the Auditor General is intending to issue an unqualified opinion. And I am pleased that although it's late in the day, that it will be done before we go into 23-24 closure properly, so that we have a firm base on which to account for. The outturn report came before Cabinet back in last July. We declared an initial outturn in May, and it will feel like a long, long time ago. But I am pleased that we are in a position that we have a set of accounts that the Auditor General is in a position poised to sign. There will be a discussion across all treasurers in Wales around how we can all look to improve, because it has been acknowledged it's been a difficult time for the profession, and that discussion will happen in due course. My intention, if you decide to adopt the accounts, will be to make the necessary arrangements and implied consent from the leader, the chief exec, yourself, presiding member, and of course myself, to put all necessary signatures in the right places on the formally adopted accounts. I will also be making arrangements to send over the letter of representation signed on behalf of the leader and myself. And then on Monday, we'll be making final representations to the Auditor General's office to effectively, as I described, to Audit Committee, and make sure there's no gross impediment for the accounts to be so signed off. So I am pleased that we're in a position that they are due to be signed off. Disappointed with the timing, but really, really pleased with the effort that all colleagues have spent on getting to the end of the line. And as I say, I couldn't underestimate, the last couple of weeks have been particularly fraught, because the same small team have been working on at least 4 or 5 things at once, but they've kept diligently at it, and I'm very pleased that my colleagues have worked through those, and once again acknowledge the effort and support, albeit in a regulatory capacity, of Mr. Owen and his team. So you have one recommendation in front of you, which is to adopt the accounts. I'm happy to take questions if there are questions, but it's a complex document, and I would advise it's been through Audit Committee twice, and they have appropriately applied my feet to the fire to ask detailed questions on the first draft, which I handed over at the end of October and went to committee in December, and there were some minor follow-ups at committee in the last week or two. So that's all the advice I need to give, presiding member. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Can I have somebody move the report?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Happy to move, and if I could place also my thanks on record to Mr. Smith and his team for the work done to get the accounts ready. Thank you.
Amazing. Can I have a second there?
Happy to second.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Smith, please? No? Okay, we move to the vote then. Can I have a show of hands in support of the report? Anybody against? And any abstentions? That's unanimous. And thank you again, Mr. Smith, for a wonderful report. Thank you very much. Okay, we now move on to the next item, and that's the schools admissions arrangements for 25-26. And can I call on Councillor Smith, please?
Yes, thank you, Presiding Member. And can I start by thanking the Admissions Forum for their work and those been presented in the report that's before us this evening. The policy outlines the arrangements that we will be following in Swansea as we, in terms of schools admission moving forward. I'm aware, of course, of the issues that were raised in public question time and other issues that have been brought to my attention, and I'm happy to ask the Admissions Forum to look at those issues and review the policy. These are issues that have been raised recently, and I think what we have to bear in mind is we're not wedded to any particular system. I'm certainly not wedded to any particular criteria here, and I'd be happy for them to look at it. Any change to our policy would require public consultation with all parents, but I think in terms of moving forward in a spirit of fairness, I'm happy to do that and ensure that any members' views are passed on to the Admissions Forum.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I got Councillor Rice first. Oh, Or do I need to Councillor Holly first, I think, sorry, apologies.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I thank the Cabinet Member because this has caused huge problems with many families, with siblings not being able to get into the school that their elder child is there or the elder child is in. I think he is right. We need really to look at this in some shape or form. I think going to the admissions panel is one way, but I think at some stage a working group or a scrutiny board needs to think seriously about how we do this. I know it's a council policy. I know that policy needs to be changed, but council needs to enact that policy change. But I think to get to that position, we really do need to have some sort of consultation on this. It is a very difficult thing. It tears families apart, especially if they've got, you know, some distance to travel between certain schools. And I know the historic reason why we run it, as opposed to many other authorities, because of our east-west split and other reasons. So I quite understand the reasons for it, but I do appreciate the Cabinet member saying we will investigate and we will come forward if there's any changes that need to be made or any arrangements that can be made within that policy. Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
Great, thank you, Presiding Member, and big thanks to Councillor Robert Smith, the Cabinet Member, for coming forward with that answer, because I think it is, even for pure practical reasons for parents, it'll make life a lot easier, and of course splitting families, children up as well. So I think, it'll be great to look at this, and maybe that is something that the Education Scrutiny Panel can look at in due course. But thanks for coming forward with that, with that answer.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. I've got Councillor Rice next, and then Councillor Black. Councillor Rice.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Just to follow on from what the Leader of the Opposition said as well, I think it's worthy of scrutinising in some more detail, and I welcome the comments that people are open to that challenge and to change. My question really for the Cabinet Member is, why have we chosen a policy which is an outlier, which is different from what I understand the rest of the Wales and substantial parts of the rest of the UK? I understand there is an east-west split, but I'm sure that's the same in most cities across the country.
If I can answer that, I don't think we're the only council in Wales to adopt a policy of this nature. There are historic reasons, which I think they go back way beyond my time on the council. But as I said, I'm happy to look at it and revise it if necessary.
Councillor Smith. Councillor Black.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can I also welcome the Cabinet Member's commitment to look at this policy again? My concern is that looking at the report in front of us, this was, of course, raised in the consultation, particularly by Newton Primary School. And there's 2.5 pages of response to Newton Primary School, which basically could be summed up in one word, which is, or 2 words, policy inertia. And, we're doing this way because we've always done it this way, is what it basically says. I think it's important that we don't just dismiss these in that way when this comes back to the department as part of that. And also, I think there's another issue which is most probably historic by now, but certainly I came across this around my ward a year or 2 ago, is when they changed the boundaries of the Welsh medium schools, that basically siblings were being separated by virtue of the fact that the transport arrangements were different, because the nearest school to them were no longer within 3 miles, and that was causing an issue for siblings as well. So I think it's important that when we do look at policies and do change policies, particularly around boundaries, that we do take account of the fact that it can separate siblings in different schools and cause problems for parents in terms of transporting their parents to those schools. Thank you, Chair.
Wish to respond, Councillor Smith, or you?
Well, I would formally move the report,
Yeah.
but with that caveat that we will refer this back to the Schools Admissions Forum for a full consideration.
Thank you very much. Can I have a second, please? Thank you.
Chair, happy to second, but just to add one point to what's been said, so it isn't lost in the debate, because I think Councillor Smith made the correct point earlier. For those of you not familiar with the panel, it's made up of obviously head teachers and others, experts who look at this, together with representatives from the various groups sitting on it, including politicians. That is the policy that has been put forward to us, but as Councillor Smith said, we're happy to look to see if it can be improved. Some of the statements made earlier were ones that Councillor Smith corrected. So we aren't an outlier as described. There are other authorities that do similar arrangements to us. And as Councillor Smith said, I think there's a misunderstanding of the general criteria and then the tie-break criteria that is applied, because there are two sets of criteria depending on which part of the process you're in. And as Councillor Smith explained at the time, this is a factor within that tie-break criteria. So it should resolve it. But all that being said, I think it's good that we look at it again to make sure we've got the best policy we possibly can have. But formally second, Chair.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. So I'm going to move. There are a number of recommendations. They're on. Oh, sorry, Councillor Joy, I didn't see her.
Sorry, I just wanted to add to that. First of all, thank you, Councillor Smith, for the fact that we are going to look at this again. It is something that I find very, very concerning, but again, looking from the impact on the individual child. When I read that response from the governing body of Newton School, and then, of course, the response from the council, it did concern me. If you look at UNCRC, Article 3, we should be acting in the best interests of the child. I am not sure that an older sibling being made to move from a school is acting in the best interests of a child. And from that perspective, I think we do need to look at it. Equally, being told that only three families have been affected, well, in fact, that's a minimum of 6 children. Again, our policy is every child matters. And I think it's really important that we reconsider the impact on the families, but also the impact on each of these individual children who are affected by the policy we make. And I'd appreciate a comment on that, please.
To agree, really, that is what we propose to do, and we will be looking into it, President Member.
Okay, the recommendation is on page 19. I'm going to take them en bloc, so can I have a show of hands in support of the report, please? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Okay. Okay, thank you very much. We move on to the next item then, and that's the Section 6 Biodiversity Duty Action Plan for Swansea. And I'd like to call on Councillor Rebecca Fogarty, please.
Thank you, Presiding Member. And I'm very pleased to move the report on the Section 6 Duty Biodiversity Action Plan as Chair of the Climate Change and Nature Recovery Committee. I say pleased, but this is in the context of us living through the 6th mass extinction event, as we see huge proportions of species of plants and animals wiped out through human-influenced changes to climate and habitat. And Section 6 of the Environment Wales Act 2016 outlines the Council's responsibility to maintain and enhance a biodiverse natural environment, which marks a key statutory requirement in our response to tackle both the climate and nature emergencies. Earlier in the year, the Climate Change and Nature Recovery Committee considered and contributed to the development of the local Nature Recovery Action Plan for Swansea, which is a partnership plan to drive nature recovery and enhancement in biodiversity across our city and county area. This Section 6 Biodiversity Duty Action Plan outlines the actions that the Council specifically will take and is structured with both the local Nature Recovery Action Plan and the Nature Recovery Action Plan for Wales in mind. The plan has been developed in collaboration with departments and services across the Council, and you'll see visible commitments from a range of different Council functions, which taken together form a corporate plan for maintaining and enhancing biodiversity in the course of the work of the whole Council. This is essential, as it is only through a joint effort across the Council's functions that we can maximise our response to the nature emergency, which Swansea Council declared in 2021. I want to put on record thanks to the hard work of the Nature Conservation team in coordinating this plan, but also to all the teams across the Council who have engaged so positively with this process, creating a wide-ranging and ambitious plan. Following input from committee, there have been some further actions agreed, including a specific action around schools to recognise and celebrate the contribution of our schools and young people to the nature recovery agenda. It should be noted that although many of the actions are already in train, many of the actions are dependent on and will be subject to available funding and staff resources. The plan sets out tables of actions that the Council aims to progress over the reporting term of the Section 6 plan, which is work that we will undertake from now until December 2025. And the plan is designed to be a living document, which will be reviewed and reported on regularly through the Climate Change and Nature Recovery Programme Board and our annual corporate plan reporting. I move the report. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Fogarty. Can I have a seconder for the report, please?
Thanks, Presiding Member. I'm very pleased to second the report, but I would also like to pass my thanks on to the Chair of the Committee, Rebecca Fogarty, for the hard work the committee done and brought value added, just to show the value of them committees and what it can do in creating policy for this thing. And I would add, this is doing with every member of the council, not to, and this will be brought back to us on regular intervals for further reports and updates to see how well this is doing. So more than happy to second the report. Thank you very much.
Did you wish to speak, Anna? Sorry. No. Councillor Rice, then, please.
Thank you. Really welcome this report and the action plan that's associated with it. I think it's a move in the right direction. In terms of trying to support the action plan and its actions more, I think there are key areas, especially when we're looking at 30 by 30. And from my perspective, just picking up on the discussion that we'd had in the group and also which has been said in the room, is it's about resourcing. It's a real key priority for us to be able to resource this efficiently and sufficiently going forward, to be able to make sure that we can meet these objectives and also to be able to go maybe beyond some of them. There are just couple of little points that I think are worth mentioning while we're here as well, is that there's a great excuse me, there's a great commitment in 2C, which in the LRAP, which talks about bird boxes and bats and things like that. And I think we've got an opportunity here in our local development plan consultation to look at swift bricks, things like that, as a part of our supplementary planning guidance going forward. And it would be a good thing to see if we can influence that, so that not only the council takes these things on, but we influence the wider society to do that. And yeah, it's great to see, and anything I can personally do to help, I will.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Thomas.
Thanks, Presiding Member. And I'd just like to thank Councillor Fogarty. I know she's very passionate about biodiversity, so I've worked with her in Mumbles Community Council, and we've done a lot for biodiversity in the area as well. Firstly, I'd just like to say it's nice to be part of a council that's taking biodiversity very seriously. I mean, sometimes with climate change being such a big issue, it's very hard to, change the amount of CO2 that we emit. But with the biodiversity, that is something that we can actually contribute to a lot more. We've got a large amount of land and a large amount of property that we can definitely influence. Some of you might be aware that the pension funds won, some awards for our approach to decarbonisation, and also under the good stewardship of Councillor Lewis, who chairs the pension fund. We've actually, to my knowledge, become the first pension fund to have biodiversity as part of our ESG policy. So that's some really good moves being made by the council all around there. Just on the report, 1G, under the nature recovery actions. 1G is something we've spoken about in many different scrutiny sessions over the years with regards to planning, and all planning applications should now consider biodiversity. I think this is really quite a big deal. I think this is a great idea. What we don't want is a mission creep where this starts to cost people who are applying for planning lots of money. But obviously, if we can get people to consider biodiversity when they make, even add an extension, it doesn't necessarily have to be a huge housing development. It could be someone just putting an extension, and just the question, what are you doing towards biodiversity? They might think, oh, I'll put a bird box on the side of that extension. All helps. So it's all that's all great, and it's good to see that those things do feed down from scrutiny, and the work of scrutiny is acknowledged. Equally, another thing I brought up several times is a school governor to be appointed for biodiversity. But again, we don't want to put more burden on the school, so it should maybe be a voluntary thing. 2C, I just wanted to ask the Cabinet Member a question on 2C. So all council properties, I'm guessing that doesn't mean council homes as well, but maybe it does. That's obviously quite a lot of council property then. And 3A, where we're talking about the wildflower and how we can improve wildflower and encourage the click and collect, sorry, cut and collect of the grass and encouraging biodiversity in wildflower areas. I think in some regards our patches are quite small of wildflowers and they look great, but obviously we want to create more meadows and bigger areas. So if making those areas and making the budget towards making those existing wildflower areas could be larger, that would be also something that would be worth looking into. But thanks again, and great to see the council moving in the right direction.
Councillor Challenge.
Can I just come in particularly on one or two of the questions there and give some commitment on particularly our placemaking strategy, really do through the planning process, encourage biodiversity wherever we can, and encourage bird boxes and others, and make sure there is biodiversity paid back to nearly every planning permission. And I know that's been, at the moment, being really, really well accepted by some of the big developers within the city, even at Persimmon and Barrett lately, who are really, really singing the praises of the planning department on how biodiversity is at, and the green infrastructure is at the centre of everything we do within the planning department. So really, really happy with that. On the commitment of expanding the wildflower scheme, then wildflower schemes, I know it works very, very well. There are some pesticide use on that. I know our nature team are working very closely to look at different types of flowers, and I'm working with, and if you ever want to use your community budget to enhance and have better flower schemes, then please do. But there is a commitment, look, where funds are, that we will try to enhance biodiversity throughout the city, subject to funds and obviously resources.
I now got Councillor Chris Evans, please.
Yes, thanks very much, and thanks to the team and Councillor Fogarty, who's done some fantastic work on this one. All I'd add is we need to make sure that planning enforcement are also involved, because it's all very well and good having great ideas, but sometimes these do need to be enforced. And some of our partner organisations in particular have been dropping the ball when it comes to biodiversity enforcement, not to mention any names. But that's something I think that we need to get involved and to strengthen up on.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, I would support some of the comments there. We are really, really keen on strengthening some of our enforcement actions around and ensuring that when we do give a commit, when we do put a condition in, that we actually chase it up. So there's been lots of conversations within the planning department and working with partners, because it can't just be us. It's not always our responsibility. As you said, there are many other partners that works with us closely in this. So I can give some assurance that this is being raised wherever we can to ensure that we are aware of any things that don't get done when it should be done.
Councillor Hopkins. Councillor Black.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to refer to paragraph 4F in relation to non-invasive, non-native species, invasive non-native species. I think anybody who lives near a railway will know this is a huge issue, particularly in knotweed, which unfortunately is not a reportable weed. But I think and I just want to give praise to the council's knotweed team, who do a fantastic job with very limited resources. But I do think that we do need to look at how we can better liaise with other agencies, particularly Network Rail, in terms of trying to protect, because they have an impact on people's homes and can affect the value of the homes. And although there is court precedent, which means that they can be sued, of course, for liability, I think we do need to maybe look a bit beyond the council's land, if we can, by working with other agencies in trying to deal with that particular issue. The other point I wanted to make was in terms of the long running saga, if you like, of weed control. And I know we've had a number of looks at how we can better control weeds, and all of us have to balance the need to keep our pavements and roads in a decent situation against the methods which we use, which are not always as biodiverse and as ecologically friendly as they can be. I'm just wondering, have we been doing any more work on finding alternative methods of weed control which might be more ecologically friendly? Thank you.
I know the department are constantly looking at this on a daily basis. What products are coming on the scene? There is some success. Some council areas have already decided they wouldn't want pesticides used in any shape or form and opt into more weeding themselves, which I congratulate them on. But yeah, in the short answer is we are constantly looking for different suppliers in weed control and others.
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins. The next one is Councillor Bridget Rowlands, please.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I'd just like to welcome the report and the content of it. I have read through the report and don't know whether I've missed this, but it would be good to see bioabundance and eco-resilience included in this policy going forward. I don't know whether this can be looked at going forward.
Councillor Hopkins.
Can I just give a commitment? This policy, this action plan is something that will be, it's not set in tablets of stone. This is a working document, and it will be amended and resourced in different ways, so it can be looked at a later stage or during the process.
Thank you, Councillor Keaton.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I'm delighted that the council are trying to find alternatives to spraying toxins, because I love the hardy annuals. They're not wildflowers, hardy annuals. They spread along. They're cheerful and they're great for bees, but not so good for bees when you're spraying toxins beforehand. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Paxton.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I'm glad to see that basically this report has been welcomed across the chamber. I know a number of us worked in this area on the council for some time. I'm really grateful to see this report myself, but I do have one concern, basically on page 86, under the structure of the plans and the key points to note. It says very clearly there that many of the actions are dependent on and subject to available funding and staff resources. I was wondering if the Cabinet Member for Finance could confirm that the finance will be made available, please.
Sorry, Councillor Paxton. Williams, I missed that one. I was looking at something else. Could you repeat the last part for me, please? If that's okay. Could you repeat the last part for me? Sorry, I missed your point.
What I said was, it says many of the actions are dependent on and subject to available funding and staff resources. So I'm really asking if the finance member for the Cabinet Member for Finance can confirm that the finance will be available.
So to do many elements of the plan, yes. But as the plan makes clear, and I think Councillor Hopkins alluded to earlier, as did Councillor Fogarty, there are some actions that will need to be taken nationally in terms of national funding to allow us to do large-scale decarbonisation, for instance, and other actions that supplement the plan. So in terms of the core biodiversity actions, yes, we're funded to do that. But obviously, this is a much bigger picture in terms of helping us to achieve broader climate change objectives, which will require national funding.
Hopkins.
Can I just add to the earlier question, particularly on weed removal? But I would say that this year there's been £100,000 be put in the budget for mechanical removal of weeds as well. So not solely dependent on pesticides.
Okay, if there's no more questions, it's been moved and seconded. So can I have a show of hands in favour of the report, please? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay, that's carried. We move on to the next item then, and that's the Human Rights and Strategic Equality Plan for 24-28. And I'd like to call on, I think it's Elliot, is it? Yeah, Councillor King.
Yeah, thank you, presiding member. So very pleased to present the Human Rights and Strategic Equality Plan for adoption to Council this evening. This covers us for the period 2024 to 28. And under our duties under the Equality Act regulations, we have to prepare this report by the 1st of April of this year. And as we'll also be aware, Swansea declared itself as a human rights city in December 2022, and so this is the first time that we are combining the human rights commitments in with the strategic equalities plan to ensure that they are kept high on the agenda. A lot of work has been undertaken to develop this plan in terms of sourcing evidence and information, and the information has come from a number of sources around both internal and external policies and information. And there's also been a fairly extensive early engagement and evidence gathering exercise in which lots of different groups have been engaged to provide their opinions and views on what areas the council should be considering for the plan. And all this has enabled us to come up with the objectives and the actions for the plan. So the plan outlines 6 objectives, and they are around tackling poverty, vulnerable children and families, tackling discrimination, domestic abuse and violence, and equality and human rights and workforce. And within each of these objectives, the plan outlines what we will do within each of those areas to take those forward. Alongside the plan itself, there will be an action plan drawn up by the Strategic Equality Human Rights Board, and this will be the place where the actions against the plan will be monitored and developed. And this really is going to take into account the views that come back in consultation and the engagement exercises that we have forward. And that will form also part of the monitoring and review of the plan. So that's all I wanted to say. I would just also add my thanks to the officers for the lot of engagement work that has been undertaken for this. And actually, you'll notice if you compare this to the previous plan, we have a document that is a lot shorter, more understandable and readable. And there's also going to be an easy read version made available as well. So I'm very happy to move the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Can I have a seconder, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Very happy to second, and can I congratulate Councillor King on the work that he's done with officers for this report. We are and remain Wales's only human rights city.
Any questions for Councillor King or anything? No. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. So can I have a show of hands to the sports board? That's including the amendment. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Okay, that's carried. Okay, we now move on to the pay policy. So I'm going to give time for the officers to leave, please. Ooh, give me a heart attack. Yeah.
Thank you, presiding member. Before us, we've got the annual pay policy review. This policy that comes to us obviously is an annual basis. We're at that time again. There is some technical data within the report that's laid out. I know that we got Rachel Davis here with us asking the technical questions. What I would say, this don't include the 24-25 pay rise, and it also highlights some of the good work, particularly on the pay gender gap. I think is making some really good inroads there, and it will be obviously having further information on that. So more than happy to move the report. And if there are any technical questions, I know that Rachel is with us to take any technical questions.
Happy to formally second, Chair.
Any questions, please? I can't see anybody indicating. I can't see anybody online. So I'm just going to go to the vote then, please. So can I have a show of hands in favour of the report? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay, that's moved. Just time for the officers to come back in. Okay, the next item is the annual review of the wellbeing objectives, and I'd like to call on Councillor David Hopkins, please.
Thanks, Brian. Member, yeah, another annual report. There's no change to this. We've met all our wellbeing objectives, so there's no change to the report. It's as read. I'm more than happy to move the report and take any questions.
Have a seconder, please.
Happy to second, Chair.
Okay. Any questions? No, no questions. Okay, so I'm going to move to the vote then. Everybody in favour of the report? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay, that's unanimous. Now we move on to the next item, which is the Chief Officer's evaluation, job evaluation scheme. So again, I'm waiting for people to leave.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Just briefly, this report is for information, but just to update Council from the report that was presented to you last year. Council approved the appointment of a LGA to implement a new job evaluation scheme. That the report outlines the process that's been followed and confirms that that has been concluded. The job evaluation process is separate from the pay model, which remains unchanged. If it is intended to review the pay model in the future, any such change would require a further report to Council. In addition, I just want to draw attention to section 6, which references further changes that may be needed around the senior management structure and the rationale for this. And whilst this report doesn't address it at this point in time, it is my intention to carry out some further work to ensure that our senior management structure is fit for purpose and to meet the challenges and demands ahead. Again, if there are any changes to be recommended in the future, that would require approval by Council and a further report. I've discussed the content of the report and the outcomes with the trade unions who haven't raised any concerns. However, what they have identified is they've raised a question regarding the wider job evaluation scheme of the Council. And it's been agreed that an equal pay audit will be conducted in the coming year, the outcome of which would determine if any actions are required on the substantive scheme. Section 7 outlines the next steps, which will be implemented following Council today. And that's my brief overview of the report, Presiding Member. And as I said, the report is for information. Thank you.
Okay, that was for information only. Can I wait for the officers to come back in, please? Mr. Evans, can you give somebody a shout, please? Okay, the next item is the nomination of Lord Mayor and Deputy Lord Mayor-elect for 24-25, and I'd like to call on Mr. Hugh Evans, the Head of Democratic Services, please.
Thank you, Presiding Member. This report just seeks to nominate the Lord Mayor-elect and Deputy Lord Mayor-elect. It's in line with the Lord Mayor and Deputy Lord Mayor protocol. The councillors named are in line with the policy, and everyone has confirmed, the group leaders have confirmed they are the correct people. So I have nothing further to add to the report other than to ask you to consider it.
Thank you, Chair. Very happy to move the report.
Can I have a seconder, please?
More than happy to second.
Okay. To the vote. So all in favour? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay, if we can call the members back in, please. Okay, we move on to the next item then, and that's the naming proposal. So I'd like to call on Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you, Chair. It gives me great pleasure to move this report. As you'll be aware, we recently adopted the naming policy, and the first action was to move that Amy Dilwyn be the name of the new coastal park. And of course, since then, Councillor Gibbard took forward a naming ceremony over in the park, attended by a number of members, and obviously a plaque will follow in due course for that park. But the second act under the naming policy is one that is much closer to home, that to formally move that the Gloucester Room in the Guildhall be named after the first female Lord Mayor of Swansea, Councillor Lillian Hopkins. And for those of you who have been long-serving members will know formidable is a word associated with Councillor Hopkins, and obviously not as well as being the first female Lord Mayor of Swansea, she was also a leading trade unionist in the city. And I have a few things which are referenced in the report just to refer to, if I may. That members may not be aware, she was awarded the first gold badge by a union, the National Union of Tailors and Garment Workers. And it's not just that she received that award, but she received the gold badge in a union that was dominated by women, but actually run by men. Again, given the role that she took in that union in terms of leading action, again, it was an accolade not of its time. So again, a groundbreaker in that. She was the first woman president of the union, the first woman obviously to be Lord Mayor of Swansea when Swansea was able to have a Lord Mayor in 1986. One of the first women over the years to also be president of National Association of British Markets. She's a holder of the MBE, and she was also awarded the Dame of St Gregory for the Roman Catholic Church, which again she was extremely proud of. She was a founding member of the Save the A&E campaign at Singleton Hospital, where she was able to raise thousands of pounds to successfully keep that A&E in Singleton during her time here. She was also a founder member of various local charities, including Tea Forest and the Gendros Community Centres, and she served on a huge number of other local groups. She also was part of the original police commission, and for all of the officers, I think she was also, under the term formidable, a real pain for the officers, keeping them on their toes in many meetings. But once met, never forgotten. And I know there's a lot of warmth even today in the chamber for Councillor Lillian Hopkins. Obviously, we have descendants of hers who are sitting councillors in Councillor David Hopkins and Councillor Nicola Matthews, and obviously Councillor Beverly Hopkins, David's wife as well. So all of that, I think, goes a long way to talk about the character and the impact that Councillor Lillian Hopkins had. And she was somebody who had recovered from ill health at an early age because she was diagnosed at an early age with TB, which did impact a number of her medical conditions, but again, didn't stop her achieving a huge amount for the city and county of Swansea. So great pleasure to move that we rename the Gloucester Room in the Guildhall, the Lillian Hopkins Suite. Thank you very much, Chair.
A seconder, please. Okay. Councillor Lewis.
Well, presiding officer, it gives me great pleasure in supporting this because Lillian was a former councillor, and I actually had the privilege of using one of her facilities when I went to London last week, the car park, the multi-storey car park in High Street. That was one of her ideas. She had a few ideas which were absolutely brilliant, and she wanted to bring a number of multi-stories around the city centre. But sadly, this was one of the first, and sadly it was the last. But it was her idea, and it was well used, and is well used today. And the other thing which was really her sort of strong point was the Swansea market. She ran that Swansea market with tremendous zeal and vigour. And when you see it today, and you see the last stall selling lava bread and cockles going, I think she would not be terribly happy with it. I think it was something that she was very proud of. She looked after the market traders brilliantly. she was a friend in need to every market trader, and I think this is important. And it was really important to bring people into the city centre. I mean, the original plan was to have 6 or 7 multi-stories around the city centre, and I, as a businessman, would have welcomed that because the numbers coming in. When you drop down to less than 3,000 car parking spaces, your town's in trouble, and this is it. And she knew that, but sadly, at the time, people thought it was easy to have buses coming in, etc. But it's not the case. But she was a forerunner, and then of course I got on very well with Lillian, and she was a great fundraiser for the Catholic Church. Marvelous, and the number of dues I've done for her up in her church is amazing. But I think she was an amazing woman. She served this town brilliantly, and I think that people like that you don't come across very often.
Councillor Hennigan, I bring you in. Sorry, I bring you in then. But...
Thank you, Chair. When I think of Lillian Hopkins, I go back many years when I seen her actually early hours of the morning. She had one of those old council mats on down to her ankles. It was a fawney colour, belt, Wellington boots, and a big council brush. And she was helping to clear the roads because they had flooding down in Wenaloid. A lot of people would refer to Lillian as a grassroots councillor. Yes, but she was a bit more than that. And those memories will stay with me forever. Thank you.
Councillor Lewis, can you put your mic off? Thank you. Okay, RFD, sorry, Councillor RFD.
I'm very happy to support this. Many of us on the council, we held Councillor Lillian Hopkins very high affection. We actually nicknamed her Auntie Lil. And that was the affection we held her in. But she was very formidable. You would not cross Lil Hopkins. Well, you could do, but at your peril. Lil chaired the Estates Committee exceptionally well, and Councillor Richard Lewis is right. Many a time we'd be in that committee, Richard, and we would not be of a difference of opinion because she loved her city, she loved the city centre, she was a great advocate for it, she loved the market, Swansea market, and to this day, you know, this year it's one of the best indoor market in the country. And probably that was due to the vision of the market in the early days. It's been supported well from Lil Hopkins' days, and it's great to see Councillor David Hopkins now under his portfolio carrying on that tradition, I suppose, of making sure it, you know, that it remains the best market. A staunch Catholic, her work again, the trade union movement. And as the leader said, you know, all the leaders of the Tailor and Garment Cutters Union were men, and yet predominantly it was probably 90% women were in the factories. But she took it to took control, making sure she led by example. Great. I can remember then on another time we were having it's a knockout competition, and we put a team in from the council in down at the Morva Stadium. I know the late councillor Patrick Morgan was there, and Lil had turned up and it got sponsorship to actually make and made tracksuits for the entire team. But there was a great memory of Lil, who led us out onto the pitch with Patrick Morgan, who Patrick said that let's warm out, and he came out with an ice box and pulled out a bottle of champagne. He said, well, this will do to start the warm up. And Lil was in hysterics with him. A great lady, a great, a really good ambassador for this council, and led by example. She was always there to mentor any new councillor that came into this council. And I think, you know, we need far more Lil Hopkins in this council. So well done.
Councillor Dick.
Thank you, Presiding Member. As a Cocker councillor,
I've got to pay tribute to Lil. I was proud to know her and to be inspired by her. And I think she left a mark wherever she went, a mark of confidence, of clarity, and real powerful advocate for the communities that she served. And she's one of the reasons that I decided to step into this direction myself. And I'm sure I'm one amongst many, many people. So I'm delighted to hear this today.
I never met Lillian, but I know she was a formidable lady to look up to. And it's a pleasure to see the rest of her family following in her footsteps. So good luck to them all. Councillor Stewart.
Thank you for letting me come back in, Chair. Just to say, I know Councillor Hopkins, Councillor David Hopkins and the family also wanted me to place on record because they couldn't do it, obviously, because of the interest, but just to say how touched they've been by all of the messages that councillors have sent them in terms of support and memories of Lillian Hopkins, and they just want to say thank you so much for those kind messages. And just quickly to reassure Councillor Richard Lewis, who's, if you look at the report below, again, well done, over 50 years service, so congratulations, Richard, a heck of an achievement there. But the cockles and lava stall is not leaving the market, I can reassure you on that. Councillor Hopkins has intervened and it is not leaving.
Be an outcry if that happened, I'm telling you. Okay. And seconded, so can I have a show of hands in support of the proposal, please? Anyone against? Any abstentions? That gives me great pleasure to say that that's unanimous. Thank you. We call the Hopkins family back in, please. Okay, we now move on to the councillors' questions, and the first question comes from Councillor Francesca O'Brien.
Thank you. Thank you for the list of the bus routes which are going to be funded. I just wanted to ask how long these are going to be funded for, please. Thank you.
The plan is for these to be funded for 5 years as part of the contract.
Councillor Walton.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask the Cabinet member if you can confirm that as a council, we've been subsidising bus routes for a number of years. And in fact, it's because we believe the bus service is a service rather than a way to make money for shareholders.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Walton. Yeah, no, I can certainly confirm that. So not only have we been subsidising a number of routes, but we have increased the number this year. And following on from what I just told Councillor O'Brien, I'm committed to that for the next 5 years. Without the continuation of these services, many people will not be able to attend hospital appointments, travel to the city centre, to their place of work, or simply be able to visit family and friends. And I fully agree that the services should be run for the public good and not the private profit. I know myself, the transport team, along with Councillor Lloyd and Councillor Fogarty as transport champions, do meet regularly with First Cymru at our quarterly, and we do regularly raise concerns on behalf of members and the community at those meetings, Chair. So.
Councillor Stevens. Councillor Rice.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Whilst I obviously welcome the support for these services, I just want to ask the Cabinet Member about the plans that the Council has for integrated transport in ensuring that there's connectivity between the railway station and services across the city, because I know from residents in my own area, from across the city, getting to the railway station and promoting integrated transport is an important thing. And the second question really is, do you sort of agree with me that now that Vaughan Geffin is the new First Minister, that one of the first things that he might be able to get on and do is to help get bus services back into public ownership?
Councillor Stevens, you respond.
Yeah, I know in terms of getting integrated travel and getting towards the train stations, one big proponent of that is active travel, and particularly, you know, the quite significant route that's potentially going to be coming through Uplands and Sketty that we're currently consulting on. So that is quite a big proponent, is getting people out of their cars, linking up train stations. In fact, there was an active travel route that links pretty much up to Gowerton station. There's a little bit more left to do. And as for your question on with Llangefin, then yes, I would agree, and I hope that that is the way that public transport is going. Sorry.
Stuart.
Yeah, Chair, and just to add, obviously members will be aware that we're trying to progress the metro as well, which will see an integration of both rail and bus services. We're hopeful of being the home to the hydrogen bus trial when that is announced. Unfortunately, though, Councillor Stevens was dealt a bit of a difficult hand from the previous administration, because when they had the opportunity to move the bus station next to the railway station, they didn't do it. So maybe if Councillor Rice had thought of it at the time he was a cabinet member, he wouldn't have to ask this time now.
May. Hang on, Councillor Lewis, I got Councillor May first.
Talking about integration, talking about integration of getting home from the various events held in the city. Do any consideration being given to providing sort of later buses so that people can get home from events in the arena? I will give an anecdotal example. I was privileged enough to use my Swansea season ticket to watch the home match against Leeds, where we got sunk 4-0 at home on a rainy evening. There was there was about a 40-minute wait for a timetabled bus after the game. So I don't know whether that's you know, I'm straying into the stadium travel plan or anything like that. But I think a little bit of better integration, particularly to take events where you've got large volumes of people either into the city centre, is needed, and will be considered subsidising those services to assist the bus companies.
What we're considering subsidising at the moment is what's listed in my response, Chair. There's a number of routes on there, as well as the dates and times that they're on there. So and everything above that then are still commercially run by the companies anyway. So.
Move on to the next question then, and it's from Councillor Peter Black.
No supplementary, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Stuart.
Thank you. I read a really interesting piece of information yesterday about 24 things for 24. And one of those 24 things for 24 on the local Labour leaflet was that we would have some tenants and some shops in the Debenham Centre. So I understand here and can see that it's happening in due course, but that's a great update from the leaflet I read. So I take it's going to happen within the next 9 months.
I would certainly hope that we could secure the tenants in the next 9 months, and that's certainly what our officers and agents are working to do. But obviously, securing the tenants would be the first phase. Then we'd have to reconfigure the store to make sure it was fitted out, the mechanical and electrical systems separated, especially if we have more than one tenant, as is the potential. But certainly, as has been reported to Council previously, we're in active discussions with a number of potential tenants at the present time.
Lewis. Councillor Lewis, can you bring your mic up, please, and put it on?
I think the right place to discuss business, because at the end of the day, it's a very complicated business and it's cutthroat. And we've seen what's happened to the high streets up and down the country. And indeed in Swansea, we've seen what's happened here. And I think that it's not, I'm sure our leader would not go on to tell you what might be happening or what might not be happening. I think it's very important that our officers do their job without being looked at. And I think this is the way to do it. We've got tremendous empty businesses in Swansea. If we could fill those, that would be a marvellous thing. It's a pity we haven't got more car parking spaces, because at the end of the day, at one time we had 20,000, now we're down to 3. And that is a very bad thing for business. If you've got businesses and they're there, and I can't understand, we just built one on the Kingsway and no underground car park. We must, people want to take their cars into the city centre. I know I
Point
do.
of order, Chair. Point of order is this is question time. Yes,
I'm terrible.
not that I disagree with a lot of what he's saying, and that's why I let him go on so long firstly before interfering.
I'm
But,
sorry, Chair.
it is a question time.
He was supporting the leader, actually.
Yeah, Chair, no, just to say, I think Councillor Lewis is absolutely right on the commercial confidentiality aspects, and I know he understands that, which is why we don't have commercial discussions in open session to protect the taxpayers' interests. But just one correction on him, there will be a new multi-storey car park opening in due course once the works are completed, and you know there is an issue there. And actually, the occupancy rates in the car parks have recovered from COVID and are now high again. And that is one of the things we're discussing with the senior management team and with the other investors in the city centre, is about what additional car parking may be needed in future years, alongside other modes of transport, including a better metro, bus services and other things, so people have choice.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. Okay, the next question is from Councillor Francesca O'Brien. It's Councillor Bridget Rowland, sorry. Okay, Bridget.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I was pleased with the response that the Cabinet Member has been engaging with local farmers in the Swansea and Gower area. I just wondered if it was possible for us to have a copy of the response that Swansea Council put into the consultation that was on the Sustainable Farming Scheme that was submitted to Welsh Government, please.
Councillor Stevens, you're going to respond?
Yeah, that's fine. You know, we've done. I know I've certainly consulted with a lot of farmers. I am one for a start, as you quite well know, Councillor Rowlands. Pardon? Across Swansea and Gower. Yeah, but you can certainly have a copy of the consultation response. That was the previous council's question, I believe, but I'd be happily to give you the details on that. No problem at all.
She was included in the question, actually, Councillor Stevens. She was included in the question.
Okay.
Okay, the next question is from Councillor Mary Jones.
Thank you, Presiding Member. And can I thank the Cabinet Member for his very helpful response, highlighting the value of the work done by the police in the schools. And really, we are very sorry that if we are going to lose them, because they have knowledge, local knowledge, which they can go into schools, and they very often can preempt any difficulties that we have. Sorry, I wanted to ask you, have you made any representations to the Welsh Government about reviewing the decision to withdraw the funding, or is it either directly from the Council or the WLGA? If so, what response have you had? And if not, are there any plans to make such representations? Because we do not want to lose what we've already built up, and then perhaps in 2 years' time come along and have a different scheme. This, you know, the police officer that I'm associated with, the schools, you know, he's very, very well regarded. You can't lose that kind of expertise. So it is very worrying.
Yes, thank you, President Member, and I'd echo Councillor Mary Jones's comments about the value of this scheme. What I would refer to is a letter that was received from Alan Michael, Police and Crime Commissioner, on the 14th of February. I don't get Valentine's cards, I get letters from Alan Michael. And I'll quote the penultimate paragraph. Over the next few months, we will work with colleagues across the 4 Welsh forces to take stock, and we will consult with key stakeholders on how best to build a strong and effective relationship with every school across the South Wales police area. So that is in hand with the Police and Crime Commissioner, and I look forward to receiving further details in due course.
Just a bit of a comment. I hope the new one will also take it on board.
Okay, the next question is from Councillor Peter Black.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can I thank the Cabinet member for the response and also for the officer who sent around the email today giving all the links. I think this is very important because this is the first time people will be voting this year with ID because, of course, we don't require ID for local government elections in Wales. And the police commissioner elections and the general election could well see issues arising for our staff and also for voters if they fail to take ID with them. So I think it's important that we do publicise this, and I think all of us in the chamber have a role in promoting that as well. So I think the links will be very useful, and I'll certainly be using them on social media. Thank you, Chair.
Could I just add my thanks to Councillor Black for submitting this question up front so we could circulate to the answer as well. So really appreciate it.
Okay, we move on to question 6 then. Is from Councillor Francesca O'Brien.
Thank you, Presiding Member, and thank you for the answer to the question. I was just found it quite interesting that we've chosen to partner with First Cymru when only a few months ago in this chamber we had quite a heated conversation on public transport and, you know, made probably quite some defamatory remarks about the company. Is it something that we're going to look into future to widen which companies we partnership with? I know that some residents felt quite unhappy that we were partnership with First Cymru when in this chamber we made quite defamatory remarks about that company. Thank you.
I didn't make any defamatory remarks. I just spoke honestly, as I always do. But we will always look for people to partner with us and put finance in. And isn't it good that a company that takes money out of this city has decided to put something money back into sponsoring an event? Long may they carry on. May they put far more money back into sponsoring events. I'd also love to see them actually lower fares for people, get longer services. And it wasn't defamatory. I think I had to go at a certain Margaret Thatcher who deregulated the bus companies. And thanks for reminding me about that. You know, when and there's so many things, deregulation. And remember when we had, you know, we had gas, we had water. You know, who owns the water now? Is it French company? But if they want to come along and offer to put money into sponsoring events, we'll take the money because, you know, they are making enough money out of the people of this country. The services that we owned are now not owned, not even owned by the British half the time. They're the French companies. Who are,
stick to the point, Councillor.
No, this is the point. No, I disagree. The point was there was a comparison made about who we take money from. I'm happy that we take advantage of these people who are making a lot of money, millions, out of the people that live in Swansea and the country, and put some money back so that the residents of Swansea can actually benefit from the profits that they have made. And I think more people should be putting people before profit and let these people put some money back into the people that we represent. So I was happy for First Cymru to play their little part in sponsoring Croeso.
Thank you, Arati. Councillor Walton.
Yeah, really just to echo what the Cabinet member said, but just to reinforce, wouldn't the Cabinet member agree that it would be foolhardy, to say the least, to refuse money when you're being the money is being provided to benefit the people of this city? Yes, I think I would definitely agree that I would rather the money went into providing better bus services, but if they're not going to do that, let's take their money off them otherwise.
I would agree, but I would congratulate our commercial team who go out looking for resources so that we can get more and more events in the city and county of Swansea. Our events team work very hard, our commercial team work hard, trying to get as much money as we can. When we have the Christmas parade, costs a lot of money. When we have the air show, it costs a lot of money. We have a Croeso going on. We have a very big events program. That events programme brings people into the city centre, that helps our retail, which has been struggling, as my good friend, Councillor Richard Lewis, has pointed out, about businesses, not just in Swansea, right throughout, are really struggling. After 14 years of budgets being cut on local authorities, sometimes it's a shame we got to go cap in hand to some of these people to give us some money to put these events on. When you would have thought that central government would have given enough money to Welsh government to pass on to us, so that we can have a programme that the people we represent can really appreciate. But no, we got to go cap in hand to some of these people who are making millions to subsidise the events that we put on. I would rather have the money direct, but there we are. We'll try to put the events because we do care about the people we represent. So thank you, Councillor O'Brien, for bringing that up, and I think it was really good of you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, that's the end of the public.
Sorry, I just wanted to say that
I'm going to cut you off again. Sorry.
Just I understand why first, damage limitation, why they'd completely want to support such an event. I just found it quite ironic, actually, that they were sponsoring Croeso, which of course is welcome to Wales, when they're not welcoming people to Swansea or Mumbles because they've cut the services. Thank you.
Just take their money and run. Don't worry about it. Okay, that's the end of the questions, and thank you all for your attendance, and have a safe journey home.